They ruined our water, and I have proof of that. And the lease does state that they are to bring our water back to the original, if not better condition, and they have not done that yet.
Wow.
How
could they?
The only way to clean, the only way to have a clean aquifer is never to dirty it to begin with.
We have methane gas coming into our well, so if we don't vent the gas out of it, it's just going to keep on building up, come into the house, or maybe even explode right there. There you go. I'd like that one.
Are we going to blow up tonight?
Yeah, are we going to, you know, the kids would say, my son would say, do you think we'll wake up in the morning?
We have a letter from the DEP shortly after we got contaminated stating that Cabot did indeed contaminate your water. It is completely their fault. You know, we hold them fully responsible.
This is bleaching water. This tank of alum water. So here we go. A pump.
Yeah.
I believe that's how it works. It goes, and then I think that's how it works. I mean, it's so hard for me to figure it out too. But a pump for each one of those. Then it comes out of there. It goes into this big tank here. This thing takes the solids. This is a carbon filter, just like a fish tank. When they found out we had gas in the water, and we had it all along, but they never tested for it, they put a gas separator in it. So now, since it's such a big tank, they had to put another pressure tank in here because there was too much water there. So this is a fan that runs 24/7. That vents the gas out. A pipe that goes out the back of the house, around the soffit, and above the roof. So they had to put an air pump on it and push air into here. They put an ultraviolet light in there to combat the bacteria that was building up in there. Okay? And then they put this in here to monitor it to make sure it's working okay. This cartridge right here, that would get dirty within a couple days. When they finally said this is no good, we're going to take it offline, this thing was full of water. She had it drained.
You know, they try to sell this to us by saying, oh, look at all the jobs it will create. Most of those jobs don't go to local people. They come from roustabouts that travel around. And so you have workers exposed to horrendous pressure and chemicals and companies that are always trying to save money at the expense of the environment and the workers. These are horrible chemicals. They're so bad that last August we saw an article in Newsweek about an emergency room nurse in Colorado who treated a frack worker who had had frack fluid spilled on his clothes, and he still had some of the chemicals on his boots and his clothes. He came into the emergency room. She treated him for 10 minutes. That 10-minute exposure to the vapors of those chemicals almost killed her. She was in intensive care for 2 weeks, and it almost ruined her liver. Those are the kinds of chemicals that we're talking about here. They're very dangerous. The companies won't tell us what they are. It's a recipe for disaster. And we really ought to be concerned about the men and women that work out on these pads, because they're victims of this as well.
Hydrofrac uses massive amounts of fresh water to extract natural gas. Using water to extract gas is a very inefficient method and permanently ruins the leaseholder's chance of maximizing profits from the gas under their feet. Along with making trillions of gallons of fresh water permanently toxic or forever removed from the hydrologic cycle, never again to be coffee, tea, rainwater, or tears.
Fracking makes water disappear. This is worth thinking hard about. Usually when we say that water is being wasted because, say, some misinformed soul opens a car wash in the middle of the desert, we don't mean that water itself exits the water cycle. Washing water might draw down a reserve or deplete an aquifer, but the water itself is merely transferred to a different place on the proverbial wheel, which is forever turning. When you brush your teeth, water flows via plumbing from a municipal well to a sewage treatment plant and then heads down the river to somewhere else. It's not really gone, although the resulting depletion of aquifers is nevertheless a hugely serious problem. When a farmer pumps groundwater to irrigate a field, the moisture enters the root hairs of the crop plant, exits the stomata of leaves, rises as vapor to the clouds, and comes back down as rain. If not falling on some watershed from whence it came, then maybe falling on another one a couple time zones away, or on all the ships at sea. Conversely, what happens to water during fracking is different to what happens to water when you brush your teeth and leave the tap on. When a single well is fracked, several million gallons of fresh water are removed from lakes and streams or from groundwater aquifers and are entombed in deep geological strata up to a mile or more below the water table. Once there, it is removed from the water cycle permanently, as in forever. It will no longer swirl with tadpoles or ripple with fish. It will no longer ascend into clouds, freeze into snowflakes, melt into rivulets, cascade over rocks, turn with the tide, soak into soil, rise through roots, or flow from your tap. It will never again become blood, tears, sweat, urine, milk, sap, nectar, yolk, honey, or the juice of a fruit. It will never again float a leaf boat, swell a bud, quench a thirst, fill a swamp, spill over an edge, slosh, dribble, spray, trickle, splash, drip, or glisten. Never again fog, mist, frost, ice, dew, or rain. It's gone. Not that you would want it to come back. It's poisonous now.
Outdoor lovers, farmers, fishermen, lumberjacks, loggers, and hunters alike have all been the admirers and defenders of nature. Hydrofrack, if not stopped, will spread its destruction like an invasive cancer. Here is a deer which has been grazing near a fracked gas well pit. My dad has hunted his whole life and never seen a deer like this.
If they put this brine and the fracked water in sewage disposal plants, they kill the bacteria. And when they kill the bacteria, here the sewage disposal plant does not work anymore, and what you're doing is putting raw sewage right in the river. They are doing this. They think that they can put the pollutants in the river, dilute it, and it's going to be all right. This is a damn lie. The gas industry and the oil industry is the same as the government. You're talking about the same rascal. It's like the fox guarding the hen house. They think we're a bunch of dummies and rummies. Right. And here, what they're doing is just coming in and polluting indiscriminately. Right. And they get, and government is condoning this. Right. Right. It's our local politicians who we have to get after. The local politicians should either be spanked or tarred, feathered, and run out of town. It's a catastrophe. It's a disaster of the century. This is what the gas companies call recycling. No radioactive material should be dumped in the river or in these landfills. They're criminals. Let's face it, they're criminals.
Criminal acts.
Yeah, it's a criminal act. Yeah. The Halbert loophole says that the gas and oil industry, they can pollute the air, they can pollute the water. Saddam Hussein, with chemicals, killed his people quickly. Okay. The gas industry, with their chemicals, are killing us slowly. They're both killing us. One is just faster than the other.
So what's the difference?
There is no difference. You're dead. That's a difference.
Just one drilling site deploys harmful chemicals sufficient to contaminate more than 100 billion gallons of drinking water to unsafe levels. That's more than 10 times as much water as the entire state of New York uses in a single day.
it is considerably more risky to intensely frac using high volume hydraulic fracturing a shale deposit that is only a few thousand feet down compared to a shale deposit that may be 5,000 to 8,000 feet down. And let me dispel a myth that I read all the time on industry websites. Well, if we're 5,000 feet down, that's 5,000 feet of solid rock between the gas-bearing shale and the water table. Not true. The first thing one learns in Geology 101 is there's a difference between rock and a rock mass. So if one takes a piece of Marcellus shale, you can say that rock is very impermeable. It's tight. Fluids like gases or liquids do not want to flow through it. But it is true that that Marcellus is also highly fractured already. It's been fractured over the last 350 million years. And the whole purpose of hydraulic fracturing is to get those fractures to communicate with the well, because they are very good conduits of fluids like gas and liquids. So all that rock, those thousands of feet of rock, is not solid rock. It's sedimentary rock, and all those sedimentary layers, you can see them exposed in the gorges around here, are all fractured. So the idea that because it's been safe down there for 350 million years, well, that's true, but now you're going down and you're poking 70,000 holes in it, and you're increasing the pressure, and you're opening up joints by the hydraulic fracturing process under pressures that that rock formation has never seen in 350 million years. The point is that you have human disturbance of something that was in geo-equilibrium. Again, Mother Nature said, fine, things are okay. The gas ain't going up. But you're coming down and you're stimulating. You're changing the stress state, you're changing the geometry, you're changing the fracture patterns. And to then say that there's no possibility, especially when you get to shallow layers, like in where we are sitting in Ithaca, New York, where the Marcellus is only 2,000 to 2,500 feet down, to say that we now have, well, 1,000 feet of already fractured sedimentary rocks between the lowest level of the freshwater table and the highest level of the Marcellus, that's dangerous. This is our Grand Canyon. This is our Yosemite. This is our Yellowstone. To us, this is a wonderful region of natural beauty. It's a place where obviously 100,000 people come to vacation every year. That industry has a good chance of disappearing. Why ruin something which is precious and irreproducible for something which is fleeting and only gives people money in their pocket, and a relatively few people? I just don't understand why we would do something like that.
Professor Terry Engelder, a geologist who is known as the father of Marcellus shale, said, quote, "This is a new technology. The gas industry is learning as they go along, and we need to give them a chance to get it right." Well, the gas industry has already experimented with its gigantic underground plumbing experiment in over 30 states, and they can't get it right yet? In reference to people living in fracked areas, Dr. Engelder used a John F. Kennedy quote, saying, "Ask what we can do for our country." And then he went on to thank all the people for their patriotism, for living in the heart of what he called, quote, "the sacrifice zone," unquote. Former physician and organic grass-fed beef farmer Ken Jaffe said this about the hundreds of poorly understood chemicals used to frack. Quote, "The DEC appears to be recommending a large prospective human health intervention trial that involves an acknowledged risk of exposing hundreds of thousands of people to toxic agents, including powerful carcinogens, without informed consent of the subjects," unquote.
In the state of New York, of those 19.8 million people, only 2 to 3% of those 19.8 million people are going to directly benefit through leasing their land and getting royalties. How about the rest of us? Losing our environment, living in an industrial zone, having to pay higher taxes because the gas company obviously doesn't want to pay a severance tax. I think it's the height of hypocrisy for the gas companies to say, well, the taxes will be going to the state of New York through the income taxes on the people to whom we're paying royalties. I mean, that's a pass-through that's beyond belief. So I don't understand why the people of New York don't rise up.
The 2 to 3% of New Yorkers that are leaseholders are spinning the roulette wheel, trying to strike it rich, while forcing their neighbors to play a deadly game of Russian roulette with their drinking water and property values. Is that the neighborly thing to